everybody. Welcome back to the Mostly Professional podcast, part 2 with Kobi. Kobi, let's jump right in. Now, I am curious as to what came first for you, psychology, acting? How did one draw itself to you, or did one draw yourself to the other? Were they kind of related in their appeal to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So acting come first. So I wanted to be an actress from as young as I can remember. And direct. So I would often direct Alice in Wonderland over and over again in my family's living room, and recruit my little brother, who'd dress him up as different characters, the poor thing. And I would always be Alice, and it was my favourite film, and still is, because I didn't realise it at the time what it was for me as a little kid, but as an adult realising I was drawn into the escapism of art, and that how it could, I suppose a sense, I don't know if I like that word, but like someone who is
as a sensitive person.
Yeah,
well, things affect you more and have a deeper impact.
Yes, and definitely that way inclined, and I think if, say, school was overwhelming or family was overwhelming, I think I found how art could easily take me away from a very, very early age. And then joined drama groups and, started off as a tree. Very important role, that one. And started ballet really early, and it was an important part of my life. I was also quite shy and anxious for a long time, and I found that when I was acting or I was dancing, that somehow the nerves went away and I felt more able to express those parts of myself without fear. So it started early, and then life happens, and at 15 I really wanted to understand people and relationships, and there were things as a kid I didn't understand that were happening with the people that are around me. So I started reading psychology books really early, so from 15. So I have this giant collection of psych books, and I'm still not stopping. 20 years later, I am in love with reading about psych. So then started that journey, and I just knew at 15 that that's what I was meant to do. I wanted to, ultimately the truthful answer is I wanted to understand myself, and wanted to understand my family as well. So I went on an expedition to try and understand the people around me.
Yeah, I feel like that's every kid's first fling with psychology. Is they're like, my family's weird.
Yeah. They
may or may not go further with it later, but they're like, it's like, my family's messed up. Let's look into some psychology. Who's Freud? Oh.
Yeah, it's not a stretch that I'm a psychologist. I think I was always peacekeeper, always trying to help and fix and nurture. And the fact that I'm a psychologist really is not a stretch or a surprise for me. It makes sense. And I was also always the person that people, I guess, came to at school. And then just had my own difficulties, like I said, with shyness or anxiety, eating issues, at one point. So I definitely was on a path of self-discovery very early. I really found it difficult to understand how people who love you can also hurt you. And I think that's why it became a bit of a mission to understand that, because it made no sense to me. And then, so what did I do? I did a bachelor and honours, a master's, and just handed in my thesis for my second master's. So I've been studying it for a while.
Yeah, how many years?
It's like over a decade.
So
Yeah.
if you're ever worried about how much uni work you've got and you're not studying psychology, then just calm down.
Yeah. It's a lot, and I'm ready to launch from uni. But I wouldn't take it back because of the lessons that I've had in self-discovery for myself and the people that I've worked with. I wouldn't take one of those years back. And also, I know we'll talk about this in becoming a mum. I had a little client recently say to me, "You're going to be such a good mum because you're going to be able to teach
Exactly.
your daughter about her emotions." And that he didn't realize, but that meant so much to me. Then acting, I was over in the States, in New York, and I was doing some training, self-compassion training, which I'm really passionate about. And so I was over there doing that, and a friend of one of my best friends back home, she put me in touch with an actor over there called Cinqua Walls, who's a very established actor in the States, and we become friends. And he shared scripts and his passion for acting, and that was it. I realized how alike it was to psychology. I returned back to Australia, and that was it. That happened a few years ago. I contacted a good friend of mine, Candice, and she put me in touch with The Factory, which is an acting studio in West End. And that was it. I haven't stopped since. And the reason for that was because I found, as a psychologist, I'm often a mirror to people's lives. So I reflect back to them what they're saying, or the focus is on my client. So often I can finish a week and I really haven't focused a lot on how I'm going or how I'm feeling. So acting gives me a way of processing strong feelings that I might have in a really cathartic way.
Because I have heard from Jordan Peterson about psychology being all about listening, and acting listening is a huge part of that, and has that skill. I think listening is a skill. I think a lot of people are bad at it, and to an extent, even this podcast for me is practice for me to listen, because I'm trying really hard to actually properly listen to you, because I'm thinking, is it going well? And I'm trying to take notes, but I know that I'll get a better experience out of it. Yeah. And then you will, and anyone who listens to this, if they really listen to the other person, and then if you're at a scene and you're not listening to the other person, then you're lost. Yeah. So
where as artists we are open to all our emotions, which is culturally what's counterintuitive, because we're taught that strength is to hide your emotions and everything's fine, and it's weak to express them. So in acting, we have this safe world where we all feel like we have an opportunity to express them, to be heard, to listen to another's. And so I think with that emotional availability, that's where listening comes in, because you are available to truly hearing the other, and being empathic in what they're sharing with you, and having that really sink in, and that's where that attunement and that connection happens just in life, but definitely on a set with your acting partner, because often you can meet for the first time and you have to create chemistry and you've just said hello, but if you truly attune to who this other person is, then you're able to establish connection.
Yeah, it sounds like that is maybe in broader terms similar to what we talked about in part one about being aware and respecting and celebrating the other people that are involved in a project, like the cast and crew. And if you're taking the focus away from yourself, either from your own ego or your self-consciousness, and you put it on other people, you focus on them, you listen to them, you see what they're doing, then I think it balances out the self-consciousness and ego of yourself, and then it allows you to be impacted, to be changed or affected, either as a person or as a performer. And I'm sure that there's been plenty of times that in your work as a psychologist, when you've listened to things that maybe are extremely difficult to listen to, or things of extreme beauty, and there's a surprise that happens in you of that you can't experience unless you're listening and getting out of your own head and putting your eyes and your ears on the other person. And it's quite difficult to do, and that's why I think it's a skill. So it's where I think you're having the positive of that, always working on listening. Yeah,
definitely. I think also it comes back to being genuine. I love what I do. Like, I pinch myself that I get paid to do something I would do for free. I absolutely love it. It's a highly privileged position for people to let you into the most secret parts of themselves and their lives, and it's my responsibility to show up and listen, because they are being so vulnerable. And then I just try and perspective take in terms of, well, any times that I've been in therapy, big believer in therapy, that the therapists that have made the most difference in my life are the ones that just listened. Like, they truly listened, and I felt a genuine sense of interest and care in my story. And I try and do that for other people, because some people have never known someone genuine in their life. Some people have never known warmth. Some people have never felt empathy. And so I just take that really seriously. And then when we're on set and we're serving a character and we're playing the role of a character, those interconnections in relationships are so important, because we're trying to tell stories. And the reason why we're trying to tell stories for many of us is so that they can touch the people that are watching, so perhaps they can see themselves. And part of my intention with being an actress is so that then fosters greater compassion. So you can watch something and maybe you judge it. Like, I've definitely been cast in roles and I've judged the character off the bat, but something in me wants to play it. And generally that's when I judged a character, because there is a part of myself that I haven't fully accepted. That's all it is. I'm judging that part that I haven't accepted. So choosing to step into that and fully embracing this story of another brings more compassion.
Yeah. Doing a little bit of shadow work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The ones I judge, they're the most interesting, because it does show me what is it about me that I'm shut off to in my own personality and in my own light and shadow.
It's definitely what draws, I reckon that's what draws a lot of people to darker stories and characters, even as audiences, of, you know, I could never be like that. It's like, you could, you just think you couldn't, but you want to see what it's like to experience it, so you watch a story of it, and then the actor has to confront that in themselves of, could I kill someone, could I betray someone, could I throw it all away?
Yep. And the truth is, we all could, because we're all as human as one another. Like you just said, I could never. And I like how it has that kind of like flavour to it, like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
I could never do that. Well, hang on. Had those circumstances happened in your life, yeah, perhaps that version of you could exist. If those circumstances have happened in my life, yeah, that version could exist.
Yeah.
We could be talking in a prison. We could...
it's that one bad day. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that one decision that goes very extreme, one way or another. Not to harp on Peterson again, but even he has talked about in some of his classes about if you don't believe that you could have been a guard at Auschwitz, then you really have not looked at yourself. Agree. Yeah. And I won't go into more detail about that because I won't do it justice, but that there's a part of you that might be the things you don't like about yourself, or the things that you think are bad, but they might be useful in some way. Like saying no is not necessarily a nice thing to do, and people think they're nice. Yeah. So how do you reconcile with that? You know, being a monster, but knowing how to put it on a leash. Yeah. I think we trick ourselves as well. You know, saying no. I don't want to say no because I don't want to seem unkind. But then, hang on. If your definition of kindness includes honesty, then if you're saying yes to something that's really a no for you, then is that kind? Like, is it kind to you? Is it kind to the other person? So I guess it just comes back to values, and recognizing we're all as human as each other. We've all got light and shade. We've all got things that we're conscious of and things that we're unconscious of. And basically we're motivated by need. And generally, often, when our shadow comes out to play, it's because we've got a largely unmet need of some kind. So when I started acting, it was about 4 weeks into my journey of acting, and I played the role of... it was a David Williamson play called Siren, and I just fell in love with this character that I judged initially, and all that what it come down to was she had such a high need for love and power because she had received so little love and felt so powerless in her life, and so therefore there comes the compassion. Because I have another question about because I in no way claim to have anywhere near the amount of expertise and study that you have on psychology, but there's such an overlap of psychology and acting preparation, like the character, like thinking of the given circumstances, for example, and even because I've experienced this, and this is also to do because I'm like an INTJ analytical kind of person, so it does play a large part into that for me. But when you've created characters, analyzed characters for a while, and then you think, what is the character of me? Oh yeah. What are my given circumstances? You know, what is my motivation in this? You might call it a scene. I guess it could be like, you know, like a first date or a job interview or something like that, or even an audition. Even this. Yeah. And when, if at all, are you most yourself. Because I know that right now I'm playing a version of me, and I'm trying not to, but that trying not to is part of the version of playing me.
Yeah.
It's a weird kind of little layering thing, and that's been quite an interesting thing to. I don't even know if it's something to contend with. It's just something to consider.
Yeah.
Of it's kind of easier to go to analyze a character because there's someone else. But you're like, but
analyze self.
I'm a person too.
Yeah.
I'm a character to some degree. How did I end up like this? If someone was to play me, how would they? What information do they need to know?
That's a good thought.
Do elements of your psychological analysis, character analysis, ever come into your personal life of like, I'm feeling upset or whatever, and then you go, but hang on, I didn't have lunch today. Definitely. Or it's because I've got a thing later on that I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah.
Does that ever come into play?
Yeah. Yep. And I was thinking back to, you asked what came first, the acting or the psychology, and then you mentioned modelling, and I have been modelling since I was 17. I was recruited by an agency in Brisbane called Tamlin's and didn't want to do it. Just had no interest in it. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so it was a job. Also, like I said, I was super shy and super anxious, and so it was a way that, to be honest, I learned how to act. It was when I started learning about, that's how you put on masks. That's how you start performing. That's how you start pretending to be something you're not to the world, to hide how you really are. And that took over for a long time in terms of, especially like being someone perfectionistic, of painting perfect pictures, and then finding acting, and then realizing acting is actually about not acting. And you have to unlearn everything that you learnt in society, and you take off all the masks, and it's so liberating because it's really hard work putting on a mask. It's really hard work putting on that version of self that you think will be liked and accepted or approved of, and it's such a relief just to be yourself. Does that mean you'll be liked by everyone? Hell no, but at least you'll be liked for who you are.
And it's like putting a weight down, because you definitely will know more of this than me if I'm thinking of the right thing, but I heard of something recently, I think it was persona or personas, and it's more to do with, like, for example, I actually have 2 day jobs at the moment. One's in retail and one's in a restaurant, and to an extent the person who comes into the shop doesn't care about my personal life, and to an extent, why should they? So you put on the persona of the shopkeeper or the checkout person or whatever. And it's funny, being a performer, I can kind of analyze that of I have said my lines, how I use and all that, the same way, because I've figured out the way that it works best for 600 people who are buying a thing, so that that person knows how to interact with me and I know how to interact with them. Because if we met at a dinner party, it might be quite challenging to talk to them, because you take away that simplified version of a person that is shopkeeper. It turns into fully fledged human being with all your flaws and quirks and everything. How have you? One, am I even talking about something real? And 2, have you come across that in your own life, like even maybe the persona of the psychologist?
Definitely. And definitely, I think probably the biggest one for me is the persona of the student.
Okay.
So I perhaps like many teens, I don't think I'm talking alone. Like, I struggled with my esteem and identity, and my escape was, well, I acted out for a bit, and then when I come back to my studies, my escape was education. And so my identity really got fused with being this high achieving student. And if I received a 7 for something, then that was my validation, because my identity was wrapped around with being smart.
Yeah.
But then there became a point where I was burnt out as a student.
Yeah. It
wasn't paying off. The drug didn't work anymore. And I was just left to ask, shit, who am I? At my core. Because I know you mentioned, some of the adjectives that I'll utilize for to brand the work I do. But at the end of the day, like, my identity isn't that of a psychologist or an actor or a storyteller. My identity is my values and who I am. I think that was a lesson I had to learn. That I think I was searching for so long for something external to define who I was. Or, I'm a psychologist. That's my identity.
Yeah.
That feels good.
Yeah, the what do you do, and therefore what are you?
What do you do? Yeah. And that's a part of self. That's like something I'm interested in, but it's not who I am at my core and my values.
Yeah, because you might feel better or more proud of saying, I'm an actor, I'm a creative coach, I'm a psychologist. You might feel better about that. Like, when people ask me that, I say I'm an actor before I say I'm an actor. Yeah. And I work in a shop in a restaurant. Yeah. Because I know they mean, like, what do you do for money? Yeah. And that whole thing.
We're getting paid.
What do you? Why do people give you money? It's like, well, I can sell stuff. Okay. And therefore, that is what I am. But it doesn't mean.
No.
You know, would you suddenly is your personality, is your like identity somehow different because you change a job? Like, maybe because maybe it means something to you, but maybe it's just a means to an end.
And I think something you said just before, like something that we can do in society, is the first question when you meet someone is, what do you do? You know, what do you do? Because our brains somehow need to compartmentalize.
Have you heard of the minimalists?
Yes.
Yeah, and
they're incredible.
Their take on the what do you do question.
Yeah.
So can you tell people what they ask instead?
I don't know.
Do you remember? Yeah.
No.
So they get asked. So if for people that don't know, there's a duo called The Minimalists. They have an excellent podcast and several books and a documentary. And they used to be poor growing up and then worked in the corporate world, and then they left that behind to pursue meaningful work and become minimalists. And spread that message. It's a very simplified version of what they are and what they do. They have an issue with the what do you do question, because it means to them it feels like, how do I then compare you on the socioeconomic scale? Do you make more money than me? Are you in a higher status position? All that kind of stuff. Yeah. And they like to flip it to, what are you passionate about? Yeah. And it feels a bit wanky, honestly, sometimes to say it out loud, but you know, you get to that anyway. You ask people, what are your hobbies? Yeah, what do you do for fun? It's just a different version of the same question.
Exactly.
Because you know that not everyone that works as a checkout person, someone out there is passionate about putting things through at the register, and good on them. Yeah. But most people aren't. Yeah. And therefore, is being a checkout person who they are. It's like, no, that's a means to an end, and they got bills to pay. Yeah. And we can definitely confuse that with other things. Working in a corporate thing, even being a performer. You know, there's plenty of people that go into this for the wrong reasons.
Agree. And I would extend that, like, the what are you passionate about, to perhaps what's meaningful to you. You know, what matters, because where people invest all their energy or their time, what's meaningful to you can really tell you a lot about who a person is. You know, first and foremost to me is relationships. Relationships are what's the point of all this, of art, of life, if we aren't capable of forming true connections to self and others. So I like to ask what brings meaning to people's life. It could be, you know, a coffee with a friend, or creating art that didn't exist before. Just what gives their life true meaning. And often, you know, it's got very little to do with anything external. It's just got to do with your values. And I think that's the key to happiness, if you're living according to your truth and your values.
Yeah. Amazing.
Namaste.